And open session public meetings are subject to being recorded. Your image and voice may be recorded. All right, so we'll get started. Guess we'll start with the collector and
You get to
Oh,
go
you want me
first.
to?
yes, you
I
can go
have to be here all
first. She's
night,
gonna be here
so-
all night, so we don't need, unless you want to hang out for everything.
You want the good news or the good news? Or the bad news? Let's
It's
do
bad
the easy
news,
ones
yeah.
first. 32B.
He even knows the system. 32B.
I do the annual chart using current population, which changes, as you know, monthly, depending on coming and going for people. Singles become families, and so it's kind of a pretty good guessing game. But we also have the chart that you have 2 singles and 2 family for medical and dental that are put in there as placeholders. And unfortunately, the way things are going, 2 of those are gone already. So there's only a 1 family, 1 single safety count. The good news is I put it in at the usual maximum of 10% increase. And 2 weeks from now, when they have the MMA meeting, they'll announce the actual rates for everybody. And as you know, it's on a sliding scale. Some people will get no increase, some will get the maximum. And pretty much we've been told, don't be surprised if yours is somewhere in the 5 to 7% range. Do you remember that? Yeah.
Yes.
They can't commit to it, but I'll readjust it and then send it back or come back to talk to you about it. And if you hear of any folks that are gonna go from under 20 hours to 20 or more, if you could let me know, because that puts them in benefit qualified territory. And it could change when you're talking 20 or 22,000 costs per person for the family. It can change these numbers rapidly. So
Why can't I find mine?
if I don't have any questions on 32B,
This Brand shows a 914.
I can't even find it in my drive.
Oh,
It's FY '23, right?
24.
could you hear me, Jan?
Yes, I heard
Okay.
you. I'm just
I
trying to
just
find
wanna
it in my drive.
clarify, I mean,
Keep
you-
moving.
you had the
Okay.
usual, what was it, 2 families and 2
Single.
singles that you pad with
Right.
each year, and you said you're down to just,
2 have been hired that didn't have benefit. 1 came back, the wife
Okay.
lost the job. And that's how it happens too.
Okay,
It's the
yeah.
outside that affects us as well as the inside.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, and I think my replacement's probably family oriented, and we have a fire chief coming on board, higher up in age, so I'm just
Right.
planning a family for that.
Right.
Depending. So it may end up at 0. You just don't know.
okay, so 2 you,
Usually we glide through the year with the 2 extra of each, and it ends up being left over.
Okay.
You just can't guarantee it.
right,
So, debt and interest. It's gone down. It will go down until it's paid off. We'll be approaching the halfway point, but they'll still be in the 3 million range to pay off a little bit more. I did put the chart there somewhere for you. At the midway point, you have the right to refund or pay off. But I don't think we have that kind of cash laying around right now like we did when the schools, we paid them off 10 years ahead of time.
right.
So those are the actual numbers from, and just to tie in, this is our only direct debt. We do get the indirect through the school assessment, and that puts it up quite a notch. But as far as ratio of debt for the size of the budget and the population, we're in really, really good shape in that area. And I think the plans to not borrow in the future if we can help it, or have stabilization funds that will offset a lot of that, is a plus going for us at this point in time.
Dennis, what number are you on again? I'm sorry.
Oh, this is 752.
One-
5900 and 5800.
752.
152?
Or 752.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Sorry. Thank you.
Yep. Any questions? Tax title.
That's the one I was on.
In the past, as I've mentioned in the annual report, it's primarily been land that's been taken. And at the onset of COVID, it happened to coincide with old history where I didn't really use the total amount that I had. So the former TA knocked it down to 10,000. And through the course of COVID, it changed to more houses with people living in it than just raw land that was sitting around. And it costs a little bit more to deal with those kind of situations. Fortunately, many of them we paid off while they were in tax title. A lot of it had to do with death or people that were really, really old and sick, and we try to keep them in the house as long as we can with different plans that the assessors can work out, including deferred. But we only have one small deferral right now, so that's a good thing. But there are some properties that are coming in next year. In my glasses and my not rosy ones, I see a rough year for the economy. I hope I'm wrong. But we're upping the tax title, not a ton, because we also established the revolving fund. And unfortunately, only the new tax title expenses, not the old ones, go into the new one. So cleaning up and doing a good job is kind of hurting us, but we'll be relying on the line items for a few more years before that amount builds up. And we do have that dynamite factory storage unit, I'm sorry, with the dam. And there may be good news on that, but I'm not involved in it. We're not going to take ownership of it. But with the greenhouse situation gone and the Chinese restaurant gone, where they had the drug problems and stuff, and the flat penny coming out on the plus side, the dam is pretty much our only bad tax title. That we take it in tax title, but we won't take it in ownership. So that's the only major concern I have out of all of the unpaid taxes. We do have a problem with personal property. As you know, the first solar project was classified as a real estate, right? Real estate. And I could put a lien on it. The state came by and said, no, it's not attached to the ground. It's permanently, bolting it to cement doesn't count. And now all of them have to be classified as personal property. With personal property, they've never given the collector anything to lien, anything to take without going to small claims court. And the amount that 0.0s right now would put us into town lawyer and town bigger courts. It's over the threshold. So that one keeps the numbers for collecting personal property a little bit lower than we'd like it. But the other two categories, automobile and real estate, our percentages of collection are higher, very high compared to other towns. So that helps a lot with the cash flow, which is good right now too. Any questions on tax title?
So you said with the solar, is there things that they're owed on that, or is it just that it's classification being moved to personal property and just the extra risk?
That's, and the future solar, unless you have what do you call that, the agreements,
Pilot program.
pilot program, which the Don't know if they're at that point yet or not. It's been a real pain for 2 or 3 years. And it's a company that has been known to have this problem in other small towns, so there are consultants working on it, et cetera. But it means it's just personal property. And personal property tends to be hard to collect anyhow because, for example, at the mall, today I have a fingernail painting place in the Berlin side, and then, I'm gonna move down to Marlboro for next year. They're always moving, so you're trying to chase them. And a lot of them don't fill out the annual report that's required. So we've been asked to collect on a company that hasn't been in town for about 4 years. And they don't owe the tax, but the assessor records haven't caught up with it. So it's a category every town has a problem with. But it's one more bill that companies don't want to pay because it's just one more tax burden.
But is the property in arrears? I mean, are they,
No, property is separate.
is
No,
this
it-
property that, is the solar property in arrears?
Yes,
They are.
yeah. They're paying the they're paying the current ones because there was another ruling after that required them to pay it. It's kind of a long story, but, so it's just 1 year, my understanding, that's still up in the air. And they're also, if they pay half of what they owe, I can't go after them. So it's well protected. I'm not paying you right now till the courts get done.
How much is that right now?
Yeah.
How much are they in arrears?
40,
Yeah, I don't know how much
I think it's 80,000 a year and they paid 40, so it's about 40,000. But if it had gone that way for all solar projects, it would have added up if more and more got built in the town. So it's a concern,
But that's the one that we have the pilot with, the
Right.
tax agreement.
right?
That one there. The other one, we don't have any agreement
Yeah.
with yet.
So bottom line is tax titles are good, but the type we get are changing, dealing with the people versus land. Any questions? Worcester Retirement,
What's the number?
9/11?
Thank you.
Every year we're paying a pretty high penalty for their investments in the past. And I thought I brought it just to compare with the normal assessment. Every year to support folks we have working for us right now for our retirement benefits, it's about $224,000 a year. And as you can see, they tacked on $451,000 extra this year as a penalty. And I believe it was an 8% increase over last year. And it's projected to continue going up each year until the mid-2030s. The beginning of the 2030s, at which point it's supposed to decline. But when I looked at this year's assessment, they've already moved it out 2 years, so it's just gonna keep being a moving target. But right now, auditors are fairly confident sometime in the 30s, the excess won't be tacked on to the normal cost that we should be paying all these years. So it's just a huge chunk of money every year. And there's really nothing you can do. Some towns have tried to pay it off ahead of time, but it doesn't work because your group of folks that you're covering change quite a bit from time to time. Any questions on that one? And June and I get the costs down because we pay day one, July 1 of the year, and we get a discount. I can't remember how much it is. It should be on
I
the
was gonna
chart,
say, I think it shows
Yeah,
the other page.
that chart there. But it's worth doing, and most of the towns and cities do that, pay it day one. We also have to pay day one for the first assessment of the schools. So when their budget goes up, the cash we need July 1, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. When you add there's 3 or 4 things you have to pay day one. Unemployment, which is 913.
You're catching on.
That's another one that we've had, I can't tell you how many years of little or no claims. And this year we had a couple of claims, and I won't go into detail, but both of them are gonna take us up way over the 25,000 that was appropriated. So there'll be additional funds needed this year on top of planning ahead for next year. And that 35,000 for next year might go untouched, you just can't tell with unemployment. But as people get older and get near retirement age, let's just say that forced retirement at 65 for a couple departments, allow them to continue by collecting unemployment from the town. And it's done if people haven't been in the system long enough to get their 15 or 20 years, to take the unemployment for almost 2 years, and then, oh, look, no, I'll take it. My age has gone up. So something to keep an eye on in the future as we have more and more people getting close to retirement in the 2 public safety departments.
So, I mean, you said right now we have 2 people, or at least 2 people
We have 2 people with big claims.
with claims.
Protested, but from the state.
So we're gonna be short this year approximately 10,300 per Dennis's notes.
Okay, I mean, is this something that was terminations, basically, that was, or
Uh,
what can you actually say? I mean, because I see,
The law says people that hit 65 in fire and police must take retirement. And with the exception of chiefs where they do that special, let them come out of retirement, I call them the day guys have no ability to do that. So they can go onto unemployment if they want, because we have terminated their job.
okay, so they're mandatory retirement at 65, you're saying? And
Right, in public safety.
in public safety,
Yeah.
even though the mandatory retirement, they can still then collect unemployment till,
They don't collect the retirement until they decide to turn it on.
okay.
Well, you can only collect unemployment for so long, right?
I think it's 18 months. It's-
18.
If you have a disability, you double that, but.
Okay, so they can go for unemployment up to 18 months before, well,
It runs out on our.
right, until it runs out, then they,
Right.
and then
Right.
they'll probably then go for their retirement or find some other job.
And I don't think everyone's gonna do that, but it's something where you just sit there and go, state law to retire, and then state law says you have to pay them unemployment. It's, like, we have no say in it.
So that's the scenarios we've encountered, is that,
Yeah,
okay.
and I don't see that happening next year. That's why hopefully the 35 becomes more than we need, like it has in the past. Any questions on 913? $145, what's the line number? 145. Treasurer collector. And I have to ask for a modification that we'll be putting through, right? It's gonna go up for expenses from 45 to 51.7. If I did my math right and took your notes right.
I believe so, I'm just scrolling down to that.
Okay, so it's not 45, 256, but 51,
756.
Yep.
And I'll send through a change, so you see it. And
That was
basic,
after you and I met, we decided, and you can explain a little bit more about
Yeah.
why.
yeah. Yeah, I can do that right now. We had an audit, as you know, and you probably read, on recommendations on the finances of the town. And one of the things that we wanted to do right away was, instead of letting the deputy collector, who collects for just about every city and town in most of the state, use the process that the former tax collector had. They wanted it so that we get the money and then we pay for their service as part of payables. And it's a cleaner way of doing it. And the former TA wanted to do that right away, just comply with the rules and fix it. So it was before budget time, and we've been eating that expense. So even in this year, we'll be going over budget because of the deputy collector. It also creates a problem in that we will collect every dime that's in the budget, but it goes to the general fund. It won't come back to my expense or my department, right? There's no way to do that either. So it's one of those catch-22s. So from a cost point of view, in my department, it's a break even. You know, if they don't bill us much, we won't use the budget that much. But it will be put back into the general fund.
We can increase the local receipts by that amount.
Okay, so right now, it's like, so if you're going out for, under the present system, you're going out for, you're basically paying the deputy collector to a certain fee or percentage of what, or how is it?
It's for certain physical things that they do, but yes, there's fees that we generate here, and when they don't work, because some people, just don't want to pay you for motor vehicle for lots of reasons. And we say, okay, fine, we don't get mad, we please pay if you can. And then when it goes to the deputy collector, they get into a more serious collecting effort. If you have a business, they can actually go to your business and demand payment in front of everybody. So, and that happens from time to time, but usually it's, just private individuals. And then it gets to the point where for a fee, $20, they put a mark at the registry. So 2 years later, when your license is coming up, you have to pay the town of Berlin and Kelly and Ryan, or any deputy collector, before you can get your license. So that's why we don't get excited when the bills don't get paid as much as we do with real estate. But, because we know it's gonna come in with little extra goodies in the end. And when we upped it to $15 for the demand fee at town meeting, it hit a part of the law that the first year is usually the year that people don't like, because a couple of people didn't pay their $5 trailer fee, little $5 bill. We've tacked $15 on it, plus 1 cent interest, because it starts accruing that day. Well, when they come in to pay the $5, the law says I can't reduce it to $5. I have to collect the 15, the interest, and the $5 to begin with. The second year is supposed to have people pay a little bit quicker and on time on motor vehicle. It didn't work the second year because we had new people moving into town, and we had a lot of people from out of state down at the apartments, and even in the houses that were purchased, and they have different rules in different states. So we spent quite a bit of time with collecting on those folks, and did very well collecting the fees and the interest, and we kept Kelly and Ryan very, very busy. And we also have people that move out of state, and then 5 years later, when their company transfers them back in, we see checks for thousands of dollars that it costs them. I think the last one we had that went all the way back to 2013. And every year up until now, they had to pay the back tax on that particular vehicle. So unfortunately, you can't just take the amount that's going into collection and predict how much is gonna come back from the deputy collector. Because some might not require a warrant, some might not require the mark, so you don't know until you get the bill and you compare it to the people that you apply to on our system.
So what's going to be changing then with going forward? What exactly is changing? That- From what today
We're
is?
paying it through the payable system every week, instead of just accepting, hey, this is what our fee is, here's your money, which some towns are still doing. But now it allows more transparency when they can review the bills in here to make sure that I received the money for a certain car, and here's the fee, this is what they had to do to collect it, and then I accept it and pay the bill. There's usually about a 2-week lag before we send the money back to the deputy collector.
In the
Sometimes
past,
3.
yeah. In the past, it was that the deputy collector would collect the fees and then keep their fees out of the money and turn over the difference to the town.
Okay.
Where now, it's, like Dennis was saying, more transparent, is that if they turn over all the money they collect and then bill us and we physically pay out.
Okay.
So it's pretty much, we're doing the same thing, it's just more of a paper trail.
Okay.
And
If
better
that makes
practice, you know, to be
Better
honest with you,
practice.
it was a good thing out of that report, but
But we can also increase the local receipts a little bit by that amount, so it helps to offset what the difference is. But our first year is a little bit, we just didn't know what to expect.
Okay.
and it will be different every year, like every other category I have. You just don't know. There'll be good years and there'll be weird years. So, if you want to go down line by line, salary is technically to cover the cost of the salary for the new treasurer collector, who starts February 6th.
Correct.
And
He'll be here a week early to train with you.
yeah, I've got 3 or 4 notepads full of stuff to tell him, so he'll go home with a headache.
Just don't scare him off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just so everyone remembers, there's a couple of important things that are coming down the line. None of us can forget, because I won't be here, that Bendison gets their bill with the February CPI. So bug the new guy and say, did you figure that out yet? And I even have a direct link that brings it right to that page, because if you've ever looked at CPI, it's about 1,000 pages, and none of them make sense.
What's the name of the new person?
Paul Redmond. And I believe this year there may or may not be the incentive. I did put it in because he's at the point of certifying for one of the 2 categories that you can certify. I was certified in both, collecting and treasuring.
COVID kind of put a wrench in a lot of
It
certification
did.
processes. So he's actually taking the test he's taking the class now he's finished the class for one, taking the test in February, doing the class for the other one now, and will be taking that test in the summer. So he's just about done.
And for all the years that he's been out at Amherst like I was, you take the other subject. If you're there, like if Richard Sodell was there for tax collector, he may take 1 or 2 treasurer. So you can accumulate that credit while you're doing the subject that you're trying to get your certification in. Any questions on the salaries? I have 2 staff members, and unfortunately, Edie had to retire. And we have funding in there for a filing person, but I talked with Kristen and decided that we'll let Paul rearrange things if he has to, or decide what to do with that, to beef up a little staffing or lead us away from a paper system. We have a horrible paper-based system here, and it works, but a lot of trees fall down to make it happen. So
So on the part-time salary, I mean, we're going to zero. Where does that,
The zero's the incentive.
The-
oh, that's the, under part-time salary? You show 70.
Well, that was my part-time salary.
Oh, that was your part-time salary?
You
Okay.
were, yeah, it was part.
Oh, okay, before we had zero on now the new person, it's moved to the full-time salary line. Okay,
Oh, I'm in the wrong line, yeah. I see what you're talking about now.
Expenses. I'll go through them real quick. We did put the consultant we had that works with the Insurance Advisory Committee. They wanted a whole lot of money, but we worked out a deal again where they'll do so many meetings with the Select Board and so many meetings with the Investment Advisory Committee and research. And we kept it at $6,000. And trying to predict what might happen and covering things is we brought back the expense we had probably 3-4 years ago when we first started. You have to do an in-depth analysis to see how much money a retiree plan will cost. The last time we did a quick snapshot, taking the population of the employees, projecting it out, and not getting into tons of detail that you have to do if you were to vote in a plan like that. And project what you might need for short term and then what you might need for long term if you put a program in place. So that 6,500 is there for that purpose. The Very Bank rating system is just a system I look at every month because you want to keep an eye on banks. And when the economy starts to tank, like in the past, we had a green rated bank that went to yellow and then to red within a few months. And that means that they were having severe financial problems. And it's probably not a bank you want to put the town's money in. So it came out real fast. And they analyzed every legal bank. I think they're getting into credit unions, but right now, we still don't invest in credit unions. But it's something we analyze every month just to make sure that all our banks are green and all of our banks have 3 stars. And what that translates to is they've been green consistently for a long period of time. Clinton Savings being one of them. They're very conservative. They don't make crazy real estate loans. They don't pay the best of interest, but your money's still there and you don't lose it. And you still can get some pretty good return. Invadar, that's the other big one. That's the software system that replaced the old one. We no longer have to crank our computers to start them up in the morning, push a button, and it's real software. One of the things that protects the town is the bonding section. It's about almost $1,000 now. And with my leaving, there will be an additional fee this year that wasn't budgeted to see if the town wants to get a bond once an audit is done to cover what's left over as a receivable from my management. And then the new treasurer will have to get a separate bond on top of that for next year's budget. So it's a lot of work behind the scenes and a little bit of an expense to make some changes. Harper's payroll should be self-explanatory. We have up costs and then weeks that are pretty cheap. We do a weekly payroll, and we may go at some point, come down to North Cemetery and tell me when it happens, but it's,
Why are we doing weekly payroll and not bi-weekly?
No, that's
I'm
what he was just about to say.
I'm sorry, but I mean, I do payroll for a little piddly company, and the savings of going from weekly to bi-weekly is huge, so I can't imagine what it would be saving the town to do that.
we've been pushing for it, and
Wow.
there's a little bit of union pushback.
Yeah.
So that's all I'll say.
We were finally able to negotiate it into the union contract that we just finalized. We are able to start it effective, is it June of next year?
You have to,
Yeah.
in
June
early
24.
25,
24,
yeah.
yeah.
June
it's-
of '24.
Well, July of 24,
It was the
Yeah.
last month of the union
24.
contract, so
It was
yeah.
in 24.
Right,
Yeah.
the last month of the contract.
Um,
And so that will cover everything for the town? I know not everybody's union, but
Right, that would be, so we could switch over everybody.
that was the last obstacle.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that, well, do the teachers, or I'm assuming
We
that?
don't
We
pay
don't do
teachers
that.
anymore.
Oh, we don't do that anymore, that's
Yeah,
right, because they're
they're
regional,
part
sorry,
Yep.
forgot.
And we do,
But they are bi-weekly, aren't they?
yeah, we do the libraries bi-weekly, so we have a mix. And then there's a combination in the fire department where they get a sleepover, if they work that week, and sleep over to cover the town. They also have a person that is learning to be a full-timer, that gets paid weekly, but they also get paid 42 hours a week, not your my 40 or whatever. So it's kind of a weird payroll. And then we have monthly for the same fire, for people that come in on calls on their own when the alarm goes off. So the same people get paid multiple times. And the only challenge for me is what kind of taxes are taken out. So we basically classify everybody, even if they only get paid once a month, as a weekly person, and the higher taxes get taken out. Because a lot of them have other jobs, and when we don't take a lot of taxes out when they get paid monthly, they complain. So we take a little extra out for them. There's not a lot of other big items that, postage went up, and unfortunately, it's gonna go up again. I haven't been able to find out how much, but it is gonna go up every year for first class, twice a year, not once a year. And where it falls in the fiscal year creates a little bit of a challenge. But we'll always pay 3 cents a piece less because we have a postage meter. So when I run it through the meter, we're at 57 cents right now. If you bought a stamp, it would be 60. So when you get into the bigger volumes, it adds up. But then you turn around and pay $88 for a red cartridge that you could probably buy at a store somewhere for $28. And then you have to lease a machine, so it's, you know. And we do have Kelly and Ryan as part of the deal. They print them and mail them for free. The envelopes are free, the paper's free. We just pay for the postage. And every year, because the first drop is quite a few automobiles in February, late January, we send money in advance, so they have the $1,600 or $1,700 required to send the first batch out. And then we usually pay a little over that once they get the final bill on how many pieces went out. So another complicated part that we figure out. And that's it on the budget.
I just have one question going back to the payroll. So we also do a mix of direct deposit and physical checks still? Or is,
On payroll,
yeah,
well, we have a 100% employee requirement. They have to have direct deposit. But when we have people, Worcester County, every week I cut a check to them, and then at the end of the month, the checks total what the monthly amount we send into Worcester. And we do that for a couple of things.
Okay, so it's not
Yeah.
from the
Yeah, it's minimal. And people that work the elections, because in the workout program, we don't cut a check. We do cut a check, but the deposit comes back to me because then it gets applied to your taxes. But they'll open the check and say, "Where's my pay?" And I have it back in Berlin. But they need it for their taxes and whatever they pay.
All right, anybody have any other questions? And that covered all your budgets, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I'd just like to say thank you. And
Yeah.
best of luck in your retirement.
I'll be busy.
It looks like you're gonna be busy if you drive by your house.
I still don't have most of the farm animals, and that's gonna be wake up in the morning and go to bed tired. It's gonna be fun,
It's gonna be way more
Well.
fun, different tired.
yeah. And I'll probably get a part-time job just to keep up with inflation. It won't be here.
See,
Bagging groceries.
That's what you think, we might make you stay longer. That's what June always tells me.
yeah. Depends on what you do, is how many more years you gotta work.
That's
But
right.
no,
You said Edie had to retire.
Yeah. I think the new person's gonna do a great job too.
I hope so.
We've talked about changes I'd like to make, but we never have time or not enough money. I think there's some nice things that are coming down the line that'll help the department, help the town.
Well, if we have future FinCom openings,
What's that?
if we have future FinCom openings,
Yeah. Never.
no, never? It'd be ideal for it.
And you know, I keep saying it in my annual report, the strength of the finance committee and the town accountant and the effort we try to make in my department, we've got a pretty good team and they have done a really good job for a little town that just blew up big real fast, and trying to balance it. And I think that's a good thing. I think we're lucky.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis.
Oh, I'm getting old.
It's a long way up, but it's even longer way down.
You wait, Dennis, next year you're gonna miss not having to come in for a
Yeah.
budget.
That's right.
You wait, huh?
Yo, Dennis, that's singing on the way out.
We have a new committee member.
We do, we have an interloper.
What's
Thank
his
you
name,
all
by
for
the
your
way?
patience. This is Toby. Toby had to go to the vet today, and I didn't have enough time to go to Worcester, go to Leominster, come back to Berlin. So thank you for letting him crash your meeting.
Toby's very well behaved.
Well, Toby's also 14, mostly blind, and has 9 teeth. So I'm not sure Toby knows where he is, but he's very happy to be here. He's a good little guy.
Says I'm warm, so that's all that matters.
He's got his little hoodie on, and he's happy as a clam. So Mary's been giving him a little love.
I think we need to add a little income to the heating budget.
Sounds like a plan.
So do we have somebody coming from the select board, or are you you're their representative?
I am their
You're
representative.
doing it all, are you?
I'm doing it all. So we went over this with the select board. They did approve it back in December as well as on Monday evening. So I'll walk you through the budget here. Basically, there's a 2.5% cost of living increase in the wages and the elected salaries line item.
And you're on 122,
I'm sorry,
correct?
122, yes.
Just want to make sure.
Oh, I'll get this down, I promise. 122. So, and the elected officials' salaries and the wage is just the 2.5% cost of living. We did a 2.5% adjustment as well to consulting services because like everything else, costs are going up there. When we looked at expenses, we looked at the cost of the trash for the town center, and that cost went up $60 over the past year, so we did ask for that increase, as well as accounting for the increase in postage, as Dennis was just discussing. We also, the cost of mailing the warrant and the budget was not previously accounted for in our select board budget, but it was paid for out of the select board budget. So that's really what makes up the bulk of that 5.7% increase that you see in the expense line item. We went from 700 for supplies to, 700 for the copy portion of the supply budget to 2,800 because we needed to account for the cost to print and print out the town meeting, and then also we upped the postage and the mailing portion of it as well. Those
So
are the.
Your increase was 2,800, right? It went to 35.
Went up 20,
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
you're correct. It went up 2,800 to 3,500, yes,
Yeah.
thank you very much. That is correct. So we did scale back the MMA dues. We were able to cut back a little bit on, and the travel budget we were able to scale back slightly, and I think I need a ruler. The MMA dues, those are all now, of course, going up like everything else, and they're all salary based. So those did get that increase to $550 because last year's budget didn't have enough to cover them. So those are really the only changes to expenses, all based on actual costs over the past year. And Mary was kind enough to print out all of the documentation for that so that we could accurately account for that. So, any questions on 122? Nothing really earth-shattering. There were some supplemental requests. The select board decided not to move forward with any of the supplemental requests at this time. I'd be happy to go through them with you if you'd like. Your choice.
I'd like to hear about, I mean, the big one that they have. So they're looking at, well, one consideration is a floating
Floating admin.
admin for like 10 hours.
Yeah, so what we're finding, and this was something that had been discussed from what I understand before I came on board as well, there's an increasing amount of requests that come into our office for support for other departments, whether it be on procurement, project management, budget management for different projects. And so we, basically oversee HR, we oversee IT, and all of the various functions in between. When a department doesn't know where to go for the answer, they come to us. And Mary is a wealth of knowledge, but there's really a need, especially when it comes to projects, for some procurement assistance and also just project management itself. We kind of talked about the possibility of maybe combining this with the 10-hour-a-week highway assistant position and having somebody who did highway and other duties as assigned. What we went ahead and did was posted the 10-hour-a-week highway assistant position because that was budgeted for in FY23. I can tell you it has been out for a week, received one application, hoping to receive more. My concern is it's a low number of hours and it might be marketed better moving forward if it was a larger position with a larger number of hours. Not that it necessarily needs to be a benefited position, but just something that was a bit bigger. So the idea, and again, this was a request, was just to kind of put it on your radar that, we have a lot going on too. And one of the things that Mary and I discussed was we moved her desk basically right to the outside of the select board office, because when you come up the stairs into the town hall, there's sort of no one to greet you. You kind of look around and you go, okay, I'm not really sure where to go or what to do. And so Mary has kind of taken on that role as well of helping folks and directing them to the various places that they're at. So it would be helpful, if I could pull her off some of those frontline duties and maybe have her assist with more of the procurement kind of project management side. So that was the thought on that request.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
All right. I can go on if you'd like to the
Yeah.
town administrator budget, which is 123. And I'm pleased to report that budget's going down. You pay me less, so there you go. It's always a positive.
And why do
thing.
we do that?
Well, why not? I'm a new town administrator. So that appropriation in FY '23 for salary was 150. In '24, the request is 144, so a $6,000 change. And then no increase in the expenses. I just reallocated a couple of the line items to where they more appropriately fell based on review of expenses in Vadar. So actually a decrease of $6,000 there. I'm sure that's a highly controversial one, so.
We're gonna have to vote on, we're gonna have to think on that one.
You're gonna have to think on that one? All
Mhm.
right, fair enough. Well, while you ponder that one, I will move to Department 151, which is our hot button topic this year, legal. A lot of the things that we came forward for that reserve fund transfer for, we anticipate either have been resolved or anticipate to be resolved in FY '23. However, there are the unanticipated ongoing expenses, and I feel that a significant portion of the reserve fund, more than half, went to the legal budget this year. So I feel it prudent to increase the legal budget going forward so that we don't continue to eat away at your reserve fund for unbudgeted expenses. So my recommendation, and this is potentially still on the conservative side, but it's a large increase, and I didn't really want to go up more than 50%, is to increase it by $25,000 from the current $50,000 to $75,000.
Well, how much have we spent?
We have spent to date, over 60,000, and we're
And we
only
still have
halfway
to
through the
go,
year.
we still have to go from now till, well, do you think 70, I'm just asking, is it
Well,
reasonable?
This year, we had the union contracts.
Right, and we
Which
had
is
some.
every few years, so that isn't gonna happen this coming year.
Yep.
So you do think going up by 50% is enough?
I think that it's conservative. I mean, we could go up by more, but that would take funding away from other departments that we potentially would turn back. So I don't know, I'm kind of trying to go in the middle between where we're at this year and looking at what will be resolved and what would be a reasonable increase to go for in the next year. So that's kind of where I split the difference at and came up with the 25,000.
Because this year, we had 50,000 budget last year, we had already done, it was $50,000, right, to reserve fund transfer. So we
Correct.
already now budgeted 100,000
Correct.
for this year, okay.
But there were two very costly, distinct matters that will be complete in this year that I don't foresee, going forward. So
Okay.
I would hate to over budget. I mean, can I say with absolute certainty we won't have to come back for a reserve fund transfer for legal? No, because, unfortunately, that's a real moving target. If you wanted to allocate more funding to be safe, that's certainly something I can look at. I don't know what the feeling of the committee is.
Well, I haven't seen anything from legal in the previous 2 years of having to do transfers, or do we do anything
Yeah.
that was between
No.
accounts?
Actually, I
So
have
this
a look
is,
back
like you
here
said,
if you
it's
give me a second. I can pull up a little bit of a look.
more of an
Fiscal
anomaly.
'23 might be an outlier, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say, is it in the folder, their Google Drive?
Yeah, I actually have it too on the spreadsheet here. Give me 1 second. Unhide, here we go. So legal,
Should be-
I have going all the way back to FY '19. Let me just freeze these panels so I can.
I see all the way back to 15
what
here.
I'm doing. Okay, oh, you have probably even more than I do.
The
But,
right-hand column is what we've spent.
okay,
Yeah, so it's 25, we spend 23. It's 45, we spend 37. It's 57, we spend 56. Is that what I'm looking at the correct thing,
Yeah.
correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, each of the, well, this year, we're blowing out of the water, but the previous 3 fiscal years, it was between 40 and 44. And then we also had the outlier, 19 was 76, but then he's dropped back to 38, and then you got 56, so
in for the contract? Would that have been the last
2019? It sounds-
2019, why was that so much?
one? I'm thinking that could have been on the contract,
That was a year and a half that the contract negotiations went on
Okay.
so that could be,
for the union.
Just
So-
like this time.
Okay. Maybe we
So-
keep that in mind, so we budget
Mhm.
more for the contract
Contract years.
contract years.
Yep, that would make sense.
What's the term of the contract?
3 years, however, since it took us a year and a half to settle this one, it'll be another year and a
so
half.
technically, is it next year?
Yeah, that's what I'm
Next
saying,
year
so
we
that's
should
why
start-
Starts next
Oh,
year.
we probably ought to be budgeting more for it next
They should be
year.
starting it
Yeah.
though, but the union has to,
Right.
they usually don't wait till the end of the contract to do it.
Can-
That's a valid
I
point.
have a question, Chris and June may know, you may know. On the billing of legal expenses, it's common to bill at a certain hourly rate and that sort of thing.
Mhm.
Has the town ever asked, I think we have 2 law firms we work with?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Have we ever asked them to give us a proposal on billing by matter, flat fee?
I don't,
I couldn't hear that, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Janet. I was asking whether the town has asked the law firms we work with to consider billing us on a flat rate by matter, by certain matters, as opposed to hourly billing by whatever rate the
I
attorneys
get you, yep.
bill at.
Yep.
Will do the work.
Flat
not
rate.
that I know of, I mean, but that wouldn't hurt to.
I can certainly ask. I've, I've seen it done mostly by hour, but I like that idea.
It's all the rage.
All the cool kids.
All the cool kids are, well, then
That's
Casey should be right
insider
on board.
information, I think.
Well, I can see a couple of sides on this, obviously. But I think it's worth asking the question as we try to budget, because some things are really predictable. Nothing's like finally predictable, but
Right.
you could put some standards around it and say, the typical matter, this is, the union contract business is probably a little hard to do that around, but if you got a workers' comp claim, you ought to be able to really bracket that and say,
Yeah.
flat fee, here it is, right? So it really depends on what the legal matter is, but I think it's good to also let the lawyers in the law firm know that we need to watch it. They need to watch it and we need to watch it, and so, it's not even really hostile, it's just like, well, what can we do to make this more predictable? Can we do any flat fees? Are there any areas, any matters that you do for us that we could do on a flat fee basis?
Okay.
And if there were, what would that fee look like? What would the matters be and what would the fee look like? And some firms will probably say, absolutely not, we can never do that, we're not the cool kids, and others will say, yeah, well,
Yeah.
people ask us and this is what we do.
Okay. And I will tell you too, I do ask questions on the legal bills when they come through. Mary scrutinizes them
Oh,
quite
yeah.
quite closely, and in fact, the last bill, we had a couple of questions because it involved the land trust land deal for Horseshoe Pond. And there were some registry fees that we thought looked a little high at the Registry of Deeds, so we went back and we asked some questions. And so anytime I see anything on there that looks,
Yeah.
so they know that we're watching it, but I definitely can ask about the flat fee component of it as well. It's worth an ask.
Is,
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there'll be things that come up, they absolutely can't do that.
Sure.
But others, yeah.
this is a silly question, but do we ever change our legal department? Like, is it something that goes out for budget? I know that sounds like a
Oh, like
silly
for bid?
question. Yeah, for bid?
You
Is that?
can, you're not required to, but you can. I can tell you KP Law is like the industry leader in municipal government.
Yeah,
They're
no, I'm
really-
not questioning
No, no,
that.
no.
I just was asking for my own knowledge.
You can do it. I can tell you my previous community, we did do it because the person that they had was retiring after 25 years. The institutional knowledge that you kind of build up with the firm, it really ends up costing you at least a bit
Yep.
more upfront.
No, can
when you
understand
switch
that,
to
yep.
get up to speed, especially if you're in the middle of like a year like this year where we have so many big ongoing matters. But I think if it was a quieter year, we could certainly look at the possibility of doing an RFP and just seeing what we get.
I just
Yeah,
was
it's-
curious.
It's expensive to pick up that institutional knowledge.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I
Definitely
agree.
underline
I
that.
understand. I just was curious.
Sure.
My
Well, and that's
own-
why it's one of the few things that are, generally exempt from,
Right.
the bidding procurement process, but
It's like a
You
doctor.
can do it.
It's personal services, so you really have to, that's an intangible that's hard to value.
We did have a different firm not too long ago, but I can't remember the name of the firm.
oh. There's a few of them out there. There are smaller
I'm
ones.
remembering this too, because there was conversation about switching, there was some unhappiness.
Yeah, and
Was it on the labor, was it the labor firm? Or was it the?
this is a newer labor
Municipal.
firm, but I thought it was the main one, but
The
I
main
can't
one, yeah.
remember what the name of it was
I'm
now.
remembering that.
I've worked with a
Right?
couple. I can tell you,
No, it does sound familiar.
Yeah.
I just,
the labor.
if you
the-
gave me 3 to pick from, I bet you I'd come up.
Me too, yeah, I could do that.
I mean, I can tell you in my limited experience here, the labor firm is fantastic. Probably
That's
the best
good.
that I've worked with.
Good to hear that.
To date. I haven't worked much with the other firm just because mostly what I've been dealing with are labor matters, but they're concise, to the point, good advice.
nice.
Not rambling on for 4 pages of citing and putting in I mean, I had another law firm at a previous community that literally would just put chunks of Mass General law in emails, and you'd have to wade through the whole thing to try to figure out what they were actually trying to tell you. And they never really gave you an answer. They would just cite the law. We actually get an answer in a couple sentences, and I'm like, perfect, that's exactly what I need, thank you.
That sounds like they don't know exactly what the law is.
Or they don't want to
So
be held to a specific answer. Well, this is what the law says. Thank you. I can look up Mass General
Yeah,
law.
well, demonstrate your law degree by actually explaining it for us,
Right.
as
right.
opposed to leaving it to the untrained for that.
Right, or they start to get really heavy into case law, and I'm going, it's nice to know, but really, I just need your opinion on this particular matter so I can move forward, So,
All right.
I don't know.
it's fun to wade through legalese sometimes when you're not a lawyer, but you get to deal with it. You get to play one on TV,
Yeah.
so. Well, what are you all thinking about the legal budget?
As long as it's gonna cover your union thing, I'm good with it.
Yeah, I mean,
But if you
looking-
think it's not, then I think you should change it now.
I mean, looking at the past history, I mean, I think you're good at 75. I mean, there is still the reserve fund, which we bumped up with another 25.
And I did recommend that to the select board on Monday night, and they agreed. They said they can't remember the last time it was increased, frankly, and I explained how we were situated this year and down to the 28.5, and they didn't see any issue with that.
On the reserve fund,
Correct.
yeah, that's good. That's good.
All right.
Okay.
Let's go to 155, which is data systems. So this is actually much better news than what I had. I initially had a $95,000 900 request for you all because Gmail was going up from $12 an email per month to $18 an email per month. And I said, oh my gosh, that's like a 50% increase. That's insane. So I went back to CM Geeks, who is our managed service provider for IT. And I said, is there anything you can do? I said, can we do a bundle? Can we reduce the number of emails? We went through and we looked at, which emails we're using, what we're not using. And he was actually able, based on the number of emails that we use, to lock us in at a price at $13 an email, which is significantly better. This is a worldwide price business increase that Gmail is doing. And actually it is likely to take effect this spring. don't want to put another potential reserve fund transfer on your radar, but at least it's only $1 more. So what it ended up working out to was a small increase in virtual towns and schools, which I believe, which is the website provider. So that one ended up going up $97. And that's just their annual fee for maintenance of the website. And then we added in our Zoom, which had been previously paid, from what I understand, from CARES Act funds. But obviously those are gone, so we need to find a place to pay for those. So for the 3 licenses, the annual fee for that is $16.47. So I added that in. And then the balance of the $28.96 is the Gmail increase. So much better news that we recently received. We only have to go from $86,956 to $89,852, and the rest of our expenses are level funded.
But I just want to clarify about your $12 per email account, not per email. I know what you were saying there, but anybody listens on would probably be panicking, $12 for every email they receive?
Yes, it works out to, it's for the email and the productivity suite.
Right.
So, right, it's the,
And we have, what, you said we have 96 mailboxes?
I believe that is the number here, what are we at? 3,600,
Where's this the FinCom email go to?
that's Gmail.
Yeah, but where does it go?
Well, where does it go to?
Yes.
It goes to a black
Does
hole.
somebody-
Not to me.
Presently,
I
it's
don't think
going
I
to a
ever
black hole.
actually received
Ever
them.
got it? I don't know.
Why isn't it coming up as full then?
Yeah, it doesn't bounce back.
Yeah.
Right, it's going someplace, well,
Right.
yeah,
It's not
it's
going to
clearly
me-
connected, it's
Buzzes
going
me.
someplace.
Yeah, I was gonna say, who has the
And he's probably
login?
just going delete, delete,
Let me
delete.
find out who has the.
I know, I've
FinCom
never
email.
got an FinCom email.
Well, there's,
Yeah,
right, I
for
see
that
it,
matter.
Well,
Yes.
I have a
it's
dis-
pointed to the chair.
That's what I thought too, but I have a distribution list that I blind copy all
Right.
of you on when I email FinCom.
yeah,
That I
Ask
get.
Travis to see if it's active. 'Cause
Yeah.
If it's active, then.
Let me look
and
into
I guess
that.
then the question then is, does it need to be, or is it,
Right, right.
or at least, like,
I got it.
nobody's
Thank you.
using it.
Thank you for your babysit.
Cut it
Your
off.
check's in the mail, Mary, for your
Thank you.
babysitting services.
Oh, he's delightful.
Oh, good, I'm
Kibbles
glad.
in the mail.
He just
I'm
wants a
waiting
little
for him
love.
to jump in your lap.
Kibbles in the mail,
Little
that's
tail.
right. I know, he's very
Yeah,
happy.
yeah,
He
yeah.
would be very happy in your lap, but I'm just saying.
Well,
Um,
but you know, the problem is I have a computer. and I
You
have
you
to-
do, Toby.
This is not gonna work.
That's not gonna fly.
Nope,
So,
I'm just gonna stare at it.
that's right. So that's it for data services.
He wants to launch.
He's ready to launch.
I don't
I
have
could
a
move
laptop,
you
buddy.
a
You
slight
can
bit
come over this
closer
way.
if
Yeah,
you
that-
like.
there you
How's
go.
that?
Yeah.
You can jump.
That, now
Now he's like, oh yeah, never mind.
Okay, there you
Never
go.
mind. Now you know what's going on. You know this thing.
It is. All right, if we're all set, any more questions on that one?
No.
All right. The next one is 195, the town reports. So we are looking into a couple options. This may end up being cheaper. We did increase it by the 2.5% to basically account for additional costs for paper printing, everything else that's going up on the supply side. However, Mary has reached out to Assabet because they do the budget book for the schools. And it's not a perfect bound. They can only do like a staple in the middle kind of thing. And I don't know if they can do it for the number of pages that we have in the report. So we kept the budget as is with the 2.5% increase, but in hopes that perhaps we can find a cheaper way of doing it through Assabet or also through purchasing less books, because I've learned that there may be some surplus books hanging around that we purchase and we may not need as many. So I'm going to work with Mary and Eloise when it comes to actually purchasing the report to see if we can A, get it cheaper, and B, reduce the number of books.
Did we ask about that? Because I know I used to work at a print shop, and it used to be pretty much the setup fee was the largest cost, so I don't know if it,
A lot of times it is.
Yeah,
So
so-
that's, yeah, and I mean, the other thing we talked about too was looking at a couple different printing companies, but they're generally very similar. Assabet could potentially be significant savings, but, you know, it won't have the nice book binding that we're used to. It'll be a staple down the middle, open kind of thing. So I don't know if anyone has like a particular aversion to that, but we
We
figure
used to
we'll
have
cost it out.
staples. Now that you just said that,
Did you?
I think we used to have staples on the sides.
Oh, okay. Because yeah, the way that it's bound now, they call it perfect bound.
I'll have to look and see. I'm pretty sure we actually had the 3 staples,
Oh,
I think.
You did in the very, well, I don't know, when
But
I
I'm
came to
talking
town, like
maybe 20 years
2004.
ago.
Not quite that,
okay.
almost, but yes, I know my first couple of ones were stapled before they became, yeah, like this.
Yeah.
So we had, our previously,
isn't it amazing?
our expense on it was, what was it? We lowered it because we went to not sending them out.
Right, and I thought we were like at a 50-50 ratio, or is that not true?
Well, it showed we
So we
went
don't have
from,
to mail them, so we lowered the postage is what understanding is. So we put the postage that was left in there, which is the $360, into the actual cost of the printing.
Yeah, I thought it's a push to try to get people to take them electronically.
We would love that.
I mean, I know that there was, discussion of that that's not gonna be
Yeah, because we
uniform.
wanted to make sure that we still had it as an option to people who wanted
Yeah,
paper,
right.
But
You're
it
gonna
is
have
now,
Like
significant-
getting less.
able to put it on the webpage where people could look at it that way too.
Yeah,
But I think too is that we were thinking that without having to mail them out to each household, it would save a lot of money. But in turn, then we have to mail out the warrants to everybody anyway,
Right.
Mhm.
which is saving us a little bit of money on, but it's still the same
It's
on
kind of
printing
becoming a
almost.
wash in a
Yeah.
way. Yeah, that's why we had to up it in our budget to account for the fact that we still have to mail the warrants by bylaw. So,
do you have a general idea how many you have left over of these? I'm assuming.
I've heard that there may be a box in the town clerk's office. I have not investigated yet,
Well,
but I
well,
will.
Do you know
There
what
was
a
a
box
I
would be?
think,
I
in
mean,
the entryway too,
200.
I think there was a box.
Do you know how many were ordered by any chance?
No, not off the
Okay.
top of my head.
We will be further investigating.
We have a nice little pile at 19 Carter.
Okay. So
We
this
got
would
big ones like this, yeah.
I mean, Toby's using them as a mattress.
Mhm.
No, I'm just kidding. We made him a little bed in the office. Just kidding.
Does that mean
So,
they're also at the library too then?
I would say the
Probably.
library, maybe the post office too. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
General store, I don't know if they have any.
Maybe the transfer station, so it wouldn't be so far to move them once they were left over.
Brilliant, Janet. Brilliant.
Just a little humor, sorry.
I like that. I like it. Gotta have some humor. So that requires further investigation that we will be doing, but hopefully it will be less, if anything. So that is the town report line item.
Could you actually, go to, just say it's all electronic and actually charge a small fee if somebody wanted them? Or would that not be, I mean, if we wanted to do a transition to that,
At one time, we did charge for like a street list.
I was gonna
But
say,
I
do you
don't-
charge for your bylaws at all? If anyone wants like a bylaw
For
book?
some reason, I thought at one time we did, but I don't know if that's still
They're available
yes, I know we
online.
did at one point with
They are.
the bylaws.
But if you
had
wanted
to.
like a bound, like a
I'm thinking
printed
we
bound
might, because I
bylaw
know
book?
Eloise
Like $5
keeps just
or
so
something?
many of them in the office.
I think
Yeah,
she
let me talk
charges,
to
she still
Eloise.
charges for a street listing, unless you're a town official
Mm.
or on a committee, then you can get one, but.
Yeah.
So the bylaw that requires US postal mailing of the
Warrant.
warrant, is that a town bylaw?
I was surprised to discover that, yes.
Well, maybe that needs to go on a warrant for me.
Is that though like a legal requirement though in
That-
general?
that's-
It's not
that's what I'm
just
getting to,
about-
June.
It is
No,
not.
really?
No, it has to be so my understanding is it has to be posted in every precinct. I don't know, you only have one
Yeah.
precinct, right? Okay, so I'll just tell you the way that I'm used to it. We had 4 precincts in my former community, so we posted one in the post office in one precinct, one in the library in the other, one I think was in a community center, and the other one ended up in Jan's Beer Mart. I don't know why, but that was always the posting location for the fourth one. So as long as the warrant announced the posting locations, and I really never understood the Beer Mart one, but there was one in each precinct, then you were covered under state law. So,
Because I want to say we did try to change it and people were not happy about changing it, but
I mean, you can put it on the website, you can make like printed out copies available at town hall, town offices, the
with maybe a
library.
fee.
I mean, they're not that big, so the cost you would save to like have just a few printed copies here versus mailing is pretty substantial, savings wise.
Mailing is the big thing.
That's the big, right, that's the big cost. So,
And I looked.
it's a sea change though, I mean, right,
Yeah.
people are used to receiving the warrant and the budget and, you know.
Writing on it at
Right.
town meeting, you know?
What we did in my previous community is we had printed copies of it available on a table when people walked into town meeting. They grabbed that and they grabbed a copy of the town report. And that's how those got distributed. So no mailing at all, but still hard copies available.
And
Is anybody putting them up on a screen? Like at the meeting? Like, you know what I mean?
The
I-
budget?
Yeah, like the thing, the warrant, is there any towns putting them up for, to have people be able to visualize them on
Oh, you mean
a,
when you're voting on them?
Oh, like
Yeah,
on a
yeah.
big projector, like
Yeah,
a screen?
yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that.
yeah. Might be an option.
Yep. The problem is even if you have a huge screen, when you get to the people in the back of the room,
Have a
they're
hard
gonna
time
say they
seeing it.
can't see
Yeah.
it. Because we tried that too, and they'd be in the back of the room always going, "We can't see." You know, it's like, ah.
Yeah, but I feel like the number of seats we have, make those people move up.
There you go.
There is a lot
I
of,
was gonna say,
you know,
Really,
what's
there's a
your-
lot of empty
exactly, it's like
spaces.
way back there's like all this room to the
Oh,
front,
okay.
so.
Yeah, that's right. Everybody has to be in the first 3 rows. It's like
Yes.
in school. You know, you got to move up.
Or you could do it like airplanes, you know?
I was just thinking
Screens,
that.
like just.
Yep, as you come in, you have to go to the front.
What's the average kind of town meeting size roughly that you get
And
here?
what's on the warrant.
So for your average non-controversial,
200,
Oh, yeah.
200,
200 to 700 is what I've experienced.
Wow.
Not-
Range.
7 would be
7,
way
8.
on the high end.
With
but-
7's like a really something crazy's going on.
but 2, that's decent. I mean,
Actually, we usually, I mean, this like last year, except for like when we had the,
That's
what
right.
was it, the conservation, what was the,
CPA.
the CPA thing on it. Otherwise, it's typically, it seems like you're in that 85 to 95. Like when we had the 2 days on that one,
Yeah.
that first day, all the votes were coming out, vote totals were just a smidge under 100.
Hmm.
But then when you had the CPA the next day, I think the vote total suddenly went over 200. Because I think it lost like 120 or to 140 or something like that, so like around 260.
okay. So generally under 300?
I would say.
Yeah, and this
Okay.
year it was also low numbers.
Okay.
But then again, there was nothing controversial either.
I was gonna say, it depends on how much education we can educate the townspeople beforehand, I
Yep.
think, too, is a lot.
Getting the information
Yeah.
out.
Well, I think that's the big thing, you know, you can post it in Jan's Beer Mart, but people who are thoughtful want to be able to read it and think about it. That's the point about being
Yep.
able to write on a copy of it and bring it in with you, because if you,
True.
I have to say, doing the pre-town meetings seemed to do a lot, I thought, as far as answering questions, and it was after that I think it was a lot smaller too, with COVID and.
Yeah, I mean, I do typically, I'm used to doing a town meeting information session, usually 2 of them. I take it on the road, traveling road show, like I would do senior center and, you know, library, do different.
Jan's Beer Mart.
Jan's Beer Mart, you know, you can't open the beer till after, but.
Parking
yeah.
lot thing.
No, but really, and also just kind of having those info sessions too, where people can come and ask, and with the addition of Zoom, it makes a big difference because you can sit at home in your PJs and, you know, you don't have to worry about childcare, and you can just sit and listen to it, so, and it's recorded. So definitely plan on trying to get that info out.
So, I'm not a municipal law attorney, but Chapter 39 of Massachusetts General Law, Section 10, pretty much says the way you give notice is up to the bylaws. Or if you don't have bylaws, by vote of the town
Yep.
meeting, how you want to do it. So, we can talk about a constable.
So you'd have to amend that, you just would
We have
require
to
an
amend our
amendment to your
bylaws.
bylaw.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, I'm not sure where I mean, even considering the cost business of the mailing.
Because I mean, we did amend it there because.
For the reports.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, this
So
was
we
on the
did.
warrant, we voted
Yep.
on it.
Yep.
And we voted for this hybrid sort of arrangement we have
Great.
now.
Yep.
And, so I think what'd you have to do, opt in or opt out? I think you opted out, what did we do?
No,
In terms
I
of getting
think-
the
I
bound
think it
report?
was just that they were made available to people who wanted them, but they weren't gonna be mailed out.
Right, you could come
Okay.
come pick it up at
Yeah.
the town offices.
Because we talked about doing it as you can send in a postcard and say, I want it
Yeah,
mailed with
yeah.
your census or some, but it was just way more work and it was gonna cost the town
Yeah,
a
yeah.
ton of money just in labor to do it too, so.
Having them available at town meeting was a good option in my previous community, because people got
Absolutely.
used to that. You'd have the warrant on the table and the books, and people
Mhm.
would just come grab one of each, and people got accustomed to doing it that way. And then if they couldn't make the meeting, you'd have them available after in the town clerk's office, or selectman's office, or what have you,
And there
library.
has to be a significant percentage of those that get mailed out that are just never cracked, never looked at.
Well, that's what
never-
they were saying at the post offices, a lot of times they would just find them in the recycle bin
Yeah,
and people picked
absolutely.
them up, which,
The warrants.
Town reports, right?
town reports,
Yeah.
warrants,
Town reports,
all of
too.
them.
All of it.
Yeah.
So that's why it probably would be
Hence,
better if they would.
hence my suggestion.
So just put them out in the particular places, make sure people are aware of the fact that's where they're
You
gonna
could
be.
have them in
and
the
then-
put and take.
Or they could come and pick it up.
So I'm looking at this budget summary for fiscal '24, and we have postage on the town report of 360, so is that what we spent last year?
That was
What we
what,
That was
budgeted?
the
what was
budget, that was what was
budgeted.
budgeted for last year.
Yeah.
So I think because if
I
I understand,
think-
you were debating whether to mail them or not, is that why some was
No,
left?
I think it was left there just in case we weren't sure how it was gonna work
Okay.
I
completely
see.
at the time.
I see.
And then we didn't mail any out, it all went through the select boards. For the warrants, it wasn't the reports that got mailed.
Does the warrant have to be mailed?
That's what we were just talking
That's
about,
what-
it's
that's
based
what I-
on the bylaws.
Right.
So the way that the Berlin local bylaws are written right now, it does.
That's what I thought.
That can be changed, but it would have to be changed at town meeting.
2/3 vote.
It's not a zoning bylaw, it's a general bylaw,
I
so
don't
So-
think so.
that's simple
Just,
majority.
just majority.
Yep.
So we'd have to advertise that one really well before,
Yeah,
just,
yeah, and I don't know if,
yeah.
I mean, maybe we want to talk about that for next year's town meeting, maybe? You just want to make me look like the big bad new person that comes in and changes everything, don't you?
Well, the honeymoon period is such that.
Why not? Just blame it.
How many months you
Newfangled
still
thing comes in and changes everything. There
We
you
have a
go.
controversial thing we can put out there. Can you put a leash law on so we can see what that?
Drive-throughs.
I haven't seen one of those in town yet, so.
I'm actually planning on a public water and sewer facility as well. I mean, I'm going big.
Oh, you are so out of here.
I am just kidding.
done.
It's
You're
getting
done.
late. It's. I told you. Once it gets to 9 o'clock, it
Well,
gets.
we have to blame
I'm not
something, because we
responsible.
can't keep blaming COVID.
Yeah.
It's been,
Yeah.
so.
It's
we'll-
just
Yeah,
late night.
yeah. All right, what's next?
All right. Next would be $5.99 community services, and this is the money every year we give to WHEAT.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
We don't need to change it.
No,
Nope, okay.
Moving on.
they
Next.
assess us $7,000 each.
Festive events. you're not getting
Festive
more
events
dough
is
either.
the same.
Which one, wait a minute, which one?
Moving.
694.
694.
I
Oh,
will
yeah.
tell you
got
that the
it, yeah.
select board, I think, want to look into this one a little bit because nobody's really been using it.
Originally, we had it set up for Christmas in Berlin
Oh, jeez.
And I thought there was a second thing
Well, I thought it was.
at one
home-
time, because it
home
had to
day?
do with the tree
Yeah, Old Home-
lighting,
Old-
and
well, I
it
thought it was
Old Home Day.
too.
somebody
Day.
to do the big tree, not the little trees, but it was the big tree. We had a company come in and do the big tree.
Yeah,
That was part of the tree lighting, but it hasn't been done, well, just before COVID, I think it stopped.
I mean, I know it's only $500, but they were kind of like, hey, if we're not spending it,
all right.
Recreation
So-
at the time too, keep in mind, does not do a lot of programs at this time in their budget, so I think that's what that was also, to help offset it, but.
So this is under
the select,
administrator, or this is select board?
sorry, falls under me.
Falls under you. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was gonna say Peg would be able to spend this on festive events, she'd be able to do it.
Maybe she's been vetoed, I don't know.
I don't know.
She can't spend it on personal costumes.
No angel costumes, only double costumes.
Well, where would we allocate the 500 to? If we,
If you were doing a home day or a tree lighting event, I think is where, if you needed to purchase
no, I'm saying
supplies
if
or-
we
Oh,
did away with this, was that what I was understanding, that, you know, then where would we put the $500?
I mean, I do have a number of supplemental funding requests that we haven't talked about yet. I thought we'd get through the main portion of the budgets, and also well, I'll take a minute and kind of explain what I think next steps are for me to present to you. I want to do kind of what I did to the select board, which is put line items together and have you take a vote in kind of sections. So I would sort of know that I had that extra funding, if you will, to allocate to one of those additional requests. And then I would run it through you to see if you agreed that it was applied to that particular request that I recommend.
So this will be part of the group
Right.
request, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I also see where festive events very well could have been used to purchase the candy for the Easter egg hunt, which has been previously donated other years, but, I mean, I can see where we could have used this money, but didn't. So I'm going through my head all of these
Yeah.
events that go on.
And I think that's kind of where the select board's thought process went too, was like, okay, so who's doing what and how does it get funded? It wasn't so much about the dollar amount, it was more about the logistics of sort of how things happen.
So you have money for something, but nobody is in charge of doing something with it, is essentially.
Correct. And please don't put me in charge because I'm the worst event planner ever. I will do my best, but I'm much better with budgets and policies than I am with event planning.
So would it be better to take it out until somebody says, I want to take this on? And then it would get attached to?
Zero budgeting thing.
Well, I think originally the reasoning behind this
Good
was
dollar.
that it wasn't pre-thought of. It was just all of a sudden, let's do the Easter egg hunt, and we
Mhm.
have money, where are we gonna pay for it out of?
We had no
Okay.
spot to.
And then it was the tree lighting, well, we don't have any place to really, the fire department, I think, paid for it the first year to do the lights, because it
Mhm.
was their idea to put it, but it's that type of a thing where way in the past, recreation usually did these types of events, whether it be Old Home Day or Christmas in Berlin, whatever it was. Actually, we had an individual bunch of people, I think, that volunteered to do Christmas in Berlin, but, so right now, we don't have anybody who does programs, other than really Victoria and then the few that Recreation puts on.
Yeah. And didn't it originate with the town bicentennial? Thought that's for the,
That was a separate line item,
Oh, that ended
because
up being a
legally we
separate-
could do that, but yeah.
Did you get money from the state for that, right? Or is that only the tricentennial?
No, we never received any money for it.
Maybe it's only the 300-year one that you get money for. Oh.
I've been here a long time. and
So
not
if
that
Council on Aging was doing something special and festive, then town administrator could fund it.
Yes.
I don't see a problem with leaving that. I kind of look at it as a little petty cash thing for this kind of stuff that would come up.
Well, I'm thinking festive events, I don't know why this is like mentioned Council Mayor, who pays for their, don't they have a Christmas, a holiday dinner meal or something? That's kind of a festive event, right?
Yeah, but it could also be like fire department wanting to do something special
Yeah,
as kids.
there may be
Maybe
something
not.
that comes up on Memorial Day that somebody says, let's, and they, oh, we've got festive events.
We could make it like a grant and people apply for it.
Could, very well.
Janet,
Who
I
can
think
come
you
up
and I are
with
in
the best
violent agreement.
idea
That's
to do
right.
something, yeah.
We are in agreement?
We're in violent agreement. I just said.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
All
Or you
right,
don't
that's
like
fine.
the agreeing with me?
All right,
Yeah,
it's
I know.
happening.
I know one.
No, we're
Bad things are happening.
we're moving on, right,
Yeah.
Stan?
I tried, I
Exactly.
tried, but we're still haggling over $500.
Yes.
We are.
Sing that song.
All right, so we can maybe think on that one a little bit more as the select board are doing as well.
I like it.
All right, do we want to move on to 912, workers' comp? That one's I have great news on that one. It's level funded this year. The Maya reached out in the fall and said, if you sign an agreement with us to stay with us for 2 years, we will give you a 0% increase for FY24 and no more than a 2.5% increase for FY25. And so I took it to the select board, and I think prudently they said, yes, let's do that, that makes sense. So because our numbers are good on our loss ratios, we have a 0% increase for workers' comp.
Terrific.
That's a really good deal that you got because we just signed a union contract, so that means the pay rates.
So that's level funded.
Oh no, that would be under the police and fire.
The IOD I did up by 5% because that's different, that's
So,
police and
so
fire.
this is our premium.
Correct. And this is, just so you know, this is not for police and fire. Police and fire have a separate policy injured on duty. This is for workers' comp for every other employee.
It's not cheap.
916 is police and fire. And Maya recommended, they don't have the numbers yet. Again, that's something that should come out, like Dennis was saying, at MMA next week.
Yep.
So they said likely if I put a 5% escalator in there, that should be sufficient. And so that is what I did.
See, we're making up that timestamp, moving right along.
Moving right along. And the last one is 945, which, great news on this one, the premium is the same. The premium is 103,400. The reason I'm asking for a small increase is because every time we add a new vehicle to a policy, there is an increase in the cost to insure the vehicle. And while some people kind of think, oh, well, you're taking one off, no, you're taking off an old vehicle that cost maybe $80 to insure, and you're bringing on one that I see invoices from $1,200 to $1,400 to insure per year. Think about what it costs to insure your car. So I still would like to get a 2.5% increase on that to cover any new vehicle that gets brought on this year. And that's it.
But in theory, aren't the other 4 vehicles going down
Did she say
from the
that?
prior year?
Does that mean motion to adjourn?
I'm sorry?
Sure, however, if you bring on even 2 vehicles, you've eaten up that
But I'm saying,
amount.
if we're on a rotation basis, we're not actually adding a vehicle.
But
all we're doing
police
is
is
to-
asking for 2 alone this year.
Well, then, right, one of them was being paid for by some, right.
Yeah.
Okay,
But we
so
still have to
the
insure
vehicle
it.
was-
Yeah,
And we also had the new
Right.
bucket truck that
Yep.
came on, even though we're gonna get some assistance from Clinton for that.
Yep. So yes, theoretically, the older ones do go down a little bit. But, there's also the cost of bonding employees that's built into that, and those costs do go up slightly year over year. We are gonna have a new treasurer coming on, he's gonna need to be bonded. Obviously, that's partially this year, but also next year as well. Because he will be here for a long time.
How good is he young?
Well, if you think I'm young,
Yeah,
there you go.
excellent.
Notice how I toe that lovely HR line without throwing out any ages, because we don't want to go
That
there.
was definitely done.
I try, I do my
was
best.
watching that, it was
Adroit.
deft.
Yes,
Yeah.
and he had the responses of a married man too, quick there.
Yes.
Knowing.
Yeah.
That's right, that's right.
Yeah.
So that's all for me. What I'd like to do, if you all are okay with it, I'd love to meet across the hall next week, and perhaps going forward, because there is a large television that I can plug my laptop right into, and I can start to bring up the budget that I've begun
The
building.
only reason we're in this room
Oh,
is
that'd
that
be nice.
some Wednesdays, somebody else has that room.
Oh, is that
hearing.
the-
So we only pick,
But I think there's one more TV. I don't know if it's something that we could just put on a stand here even.
Oh,
that-
like bring it in?
Yeah.
oh, Mary
'cause I
has a
thought there's
stand.
two. I thought we have two TVs.
Okay, so if, we'll
Okay.
look into maybe seeing if we can bring the TV in here, if
But I
not.
was gonna vote if it's warmer in the other room, I'm all for moving.
No, we
I have a
just,
space heater I can
we
bring.
were just trying to be in the same place every week,
Toby?
but
Well, I would say he is quite warm, would you like Toby?
Not sure, Brent,
It's just a little hairy, but.
but we'll
it's-
meet
it's warm.
wherever
It's
you
warm.
need us.
I got a red collar on this.
I don't. So,
But,
and,
so it may be available next week. is what I'm
okay.
saying.
Well, if it's something we're gonna do week over week, though, we probably want a permanent
Which
solution.
I would say, let's see, because I mean, we have the TV for town meetings, so it's just sitting around here somewhere.
Okay,
Okay.
we'll hunt it down. Let me add that to my.
If we don't change it on the thingy too, what room we're
Oh, the
in,
agenda.
it's gonna
Oh,
be
yeah.
a problem with open meeting law.
And we have to, well, you'd have to do it by this Friday because Monday's a holiday.
Yeah.
We'll work with the TV on wheels.
Okay, good.
Make it
I just assume every winter, every other Monday's a holiday.
Yep,
That's
pretty,
just-
that's
that's
the
pretty
next
much-
few months, that's
yeah.
exactly where you're at. Yep.
And-
So, there was, we're done with your budget?
Yes.
So there was the school committee had a,
Yeah, that's what I wanted to see. It was confusing from the email. So are they going to be attending the board's meeting this coming Monday? To-
No, they attended this past Monday, which
Well-
I attended.
Oh, they did?
Yep.
Okay.
And it was pretty much just trying to, the biggest problem is we're moving money out of a 22 into a 23. They're not asking for any more money than was already budgeted, and the money was for an electronic sign, which has more problems than they foresee them being able to figure out before 2025. So they're just saying, can we have the money that we've already allocated for one thing, which isn't happening, and reallocate it to something else that is happening? And I believe the select board were fine with it.
Right.
We need to be fine with it, and then I'm going to capital planning at 5 o'clock on Friday, and Eloise was the capital planning person, and I believe she spoke up and said she would bring it back, and she didn't see there was a problem. Am I
Right.
right with all that? Did
You
I get
are
it good?
Absolutely right.
See?
I'll add a little bit more
Okay.
about the item. So the
Get it?
FY23 item is a equipment platform. It's an HVAC item, so they had their facilities director there to talk about it. That item ended up coming in $18,000 over budget, like everything else.
Everything
We just had
else,
an air
yeah.
handler come in $23,000 over budget, so I'm not surprised.
Mhm.
So they actually had that amount of funding allocated for the sign in '22. They just literally want to take it, move it to '23 to cover the overage for that equipment platform that was already approved as a '23 capital item. So it's nothing new, it's just an overage. We just have to figure out, I think
So-
it's gonna require an article at town
I
meeting.
don't know, because technically, as a regional school, we vote a line for their budget.
Mhm.
We don't have to separate it
Correct.
between
Right.
Berlin Memorial and Tohoto, but we do.
Okay.
And I think we don't even have to do capital separate.
Okay.
So like, if we just gave them a lump sum, we're just saying, here you go, do whatever you want, because we didn't itemize it.
So they
Anywhere.
break it out, but we didn't itemize it.
So technically, unless we were to give them special articles, which we had done, I think, once or twice up at Tohoto, then we would have to do it at town meeting.
Okay,
Do you know what I mean?
yes.
But the only thing is that I personally think it's nice to at least make everybody aware of it, because then if they come back and they ask for a huge amount next year, and you see the same things that you've already voted on, you think, that's the only thing that all of a sudden now you have to explain, well, we already gave you that money and you've spent it on something else that we did not approve. You know what I mean? So
It's
that
a
would be the only time.
transparency thing.
Correct.
Yeah. But-
Which makes sense. I just
Yeah.
didn't have and from the email that I got from the schools, and this was probably my confusion, I thought they were both 23 items and they were
Yeah.
just swapping the money. And when she started speaking, said one was 22 and one was 23, the little bells went off my head that said, I just want to check because it's crossing fiscal years.
But it doesn't matter, because we've already paid them that money,
Oh, they already have it, right, because we're in 23.
because they do an assessment for that capital. So we pay for that,
And it's not
Twice a year.
budgeted out by item, so.
exactly. So we've already paid them for last year's money and they're sitting on it.
Yeah, so then that shouldn't be an issue.
I agree with you with the transparency, but as we all know, schools are, we vote the lump sum and it's,
And
throughout the
technically-
school year, it's, we rob Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah.
You know,
That's why the state does not require line item budgeting for schools, because you have so many kids come in, leave, special
Yeah.
ed needs change. You have to have
Yeah.
that flexibility in a school budget.
So it's more of a courtesy, I guess, than, and transparency.
yeah.
That's all.
Well, couldn't we just write something up in one of the reports or, you know, saying just this, you know, like, I know capital planning always writes out everything.
Yep.
Maybe we can just say, you know, this item, however they want to do. I don't know. I'm only the liaison, but I mean,
Well,
there
I-
must be an easy way we can do it to make it transparent.
I think what you could do is what the select board did if you want, which was take a vote of support of the concept. And, you know, we would figure out if there has to be any type of, you know, what, if there is any type of financial movement that has to happen, which it doesn't sound like there is. Obviously, we've had a little more time to think about it since Monday, so that's good. You know, I think they're just looking for, you know, a vote from finance, capital, and the select board to make sure that, you know, everybody is on the same page and knows what's going on.
Did the select board take a vote?
Mhm.
They did, they voted
Okay.
to. in
And it's
favor
an
of it.
HVAC.
HVAC.
I make a motion that we allow the transfer of, what is it,
I think she said 18.
18,000 from the capital planning school sign, it was a school sign to be reallocated to the HVAC
Equipment
2023, 18,000, due to an overage of Cost.
overage.
which we are seeing consistently post-COVID. How's that sound? Did you get that,
I
Julie?
did not get that. It's after 9 o'clock. for me, too.
May I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
That is, maybe helps. If you say authorize the transfer of 18,000 in FY '22 funds, capital funds, allocated for an electronic sign.
Yep.
So authorize a transfer of FY '22 funds.
18,000 in FY '22 funds.
of 18,000.
I tried.
No,
No,
it was
No, that
very
was
good.
good. You were good.
I was
That was
trying
a
to
tough
give you a
one on the
break.
fly.
Jumping off point.
Okay, so a motion to authorize transfer of 18,000 in FY '22 funds. for-
Capital funds, probably.
Capital
yeah.
funds, okay. For an electronic sign.
To be reallocated, right? Because
Yep.
that's what we're doing, right? We're reallocating, right?
Yep.
To be reallocated
For a,
For
for overages.
FY '23 HVAC
HVAC equipment platform.
platform.
For FY '23 HVAC equipment platform.
Due to, I would say that the project came in over budget.
Yeah,
or
over budget.
over-
But
over-
we're seeing that
over.
all around with
It-
everything.
We really are, and I'm seeing it too, and it's a challenge.
I will second.
Any more discussion?
You said it perfectly, I was just trying to help.
No, I,
All right, roll call. Scott, aye.
Stan, I.
Mary, I.
Janet, I.
Julie, I.
All right, passes 5-0.
So my only thing on that is that June, you had said that there's not even necessarily a requirement to separate out capital.
To separate capital itself into,
No, we could do it
Sub-items.
all one lump sum to the
But
region.
they don't have to spend it on capital. They could take it and spend it on programs?
Should they? They should use it on capital.
Well, I remember, one thing that stood out to me was that somebody talked about the fact that we're basically turning over the schools to a regional committee that if they don't make, if they don't take that money that we allocate for capital improvements and spend it on capital improvements, 5 years down the road, we could be handed back a school in dire need of repairs all over the place because they've just taken that money and spent it on adding teachers.
I mean,
Which-
Assabet has always done a separate line item for capital, but I think that was only for the repairs. To the school was the only thing we've ever done separately. That's all I was trying to
Yeah.
compare it
Mhm.
to. I mean, I can definitely, we can confirm that. I don't know who we would ask, but it would be one of those things where because I'm looking at it the same way you are, Steve. I like to have a little bit.
Well, I would just say,
of-
I would say shame on us if that's what we agreed to for for regionalization. I mean, if we didn't,
But we do that for Assabet.
no, shame on us if we don't make them spend it on capital, is what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Yeah.
But the whole thing is we don't know what they're spending it on because we don't see any of those bills until they do their report it
Right.
that you see in town meeting.
Which, I've been through this in every community I've worked in, people don't like it, but there's a reason for it. Because the money has to be able to be moved between line items.
And I see what you're saying now that we're regional, but we've trusted them to do it when it was Berlin Memorial and Tohoto. They were still doing the same thing.
Not on capital, because we always
No,
gave them
well,
special articles.
Right, but I
on
mean, the
each
budget
thing, but-
itself, they were,
Yes,
You know,
from line item to
from line
Oh,
item.
right, and that's what
Yeah.
every budget, I mean, every
Yeah.
department's budget is similar to
Right.
that, and that they
Pretty
can,
much, yeah.
that they don't have to spend it all on repair.
Exactly what
Yeah.
is there, they
Yeah.
can kind of move, but,
Anyways, just
It's-
that argument
it's-
about the
it's
handing the
smart
school
to
back
have.
with a bunch of
yeah.
needed repairs. kind of
I'm not
stuff.
saying that you should do that, but I don't think legally we have to do it the
Yeah.
way that we're doing it.
Right.
Anyway,
I
that's
think
all
it's
separate
wise.
anyway.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I don't come from a regional school district background. I come from a school department, if you will, where they get a bottom line
Sure.
number. And if they run out of money for special education or they have to hire a teacher or whatever, that can be taken out of the maintenance or capital line items. And we've run into issues in the past with deferred maintenance at schools.
Yeah.
So I completely understand where you're coming from on that.
Anyway, for another time.
Okay, anything else we need to cover?
The minute,
Sorry,
oh, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
No, I just want to make sure we didn't forget to do the minutes from last week because somebody needs them.
I actually don't, you were live.
Oh, you
I have
don't?
real signatures and everything, so I don't need the minutes.
Oh, okay, so we
Yeah.
don't have to do it
Just do
then.
Mulligan.
Yeah, it was nice to
The
have
old
it.
fashioned thing.
Just, I know, like the old days, it was wonderful.
Hmm.
Just a couple of updates. Fred came in and visited today, and it was for 1870. Because that's what it says on the estimate, so that's
Ah.
why we said that's what
Okay.
it was. So it's actually for 1870. He did speak with somebody else, and they're gonna look into it and see if they can get him a little bit better of a deal on it. And it was also, somebody I think asked about it, there is some sort of a condensation that's coming down through and hitting it, so they're also gonna see about moving it, so that doesn't happen again. So he will be working on that hopefully this week or next, so that will be there. Dennis hit on the unemployment a little bit, so he came in with the 10,000, say 300, plus or minus, that we could be liable for this year, just as a heads up. And I'm gonna give you all the bad first. And the next one that we might have to take a look at is fuel oil for this year, because we had 33K and we've already spent 25 through December. So fingers crossed that we'll make it. But I just wanted to give you another heads up that, surprise, there's another one. But Dennis did give me a little bit of good news that towards the end of the year, he thinks, as of right now, that there's a possibility of $164,000 that will be left in Chapter 32B to be used from line item to line item if we have to, but we can't do that until May and June, so.
You said it was what, 164,000?
I'm sorry.
You said it was 164,000? Is it?
Yeah. There may be a couple in other things, but for right now, that's what we have.
Toby, do you have anything to add?
He's actually finally
was
gone to
just gonna
sleep.
say-
Oh,
You guys
God.
totally ignored him and
He
he's
beat
done.
Stan.
It's those voices, you know?
He's done. You've lulled him to sleep.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're all set.
You're looking at me?
Yes.
Motion to adjourn,
Okay. Hey, we did it earlier. than-
9:13. What'd you?